Yes, jolly good. If I start with item 1 then, well, I'll welcome everybody apart from anything else because this is the first cabinet of our cabinet, isn't it? So, so welcome everybody to that, to the first event. Can I ask if item 1 for declarations of interest, please? Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. For absolute transparency, just on item 8, 2 of the areas being considered are within the area I represent as a county councillor, not on this council. It is on my members' interests, but I thought I'd say it here for absolute transparency.
Anybody else for any more? No? Okay. In that case, could I take apologies for absence?
There's no apologies, Jim.
Thank you. And then we move on to item 3, therefore, the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on 18th of April 2023. I'm wondering if everybody's seen those last minutes. Obviously, some of us were not present at them. I'm assuming that it's acceptable for us to note them and accept them and move on. Yes, is that okay? Yes, Councillor Roper.
So, Chair, I did briefly confirm with former Cabinet members in the room and they seem to be perfectly happy with the minutes, so I think we can proceed.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, are there any members of the public, therefore, who have requested to speak?
There's no public speaking.
No, thank you. In that case, if I move to item 5, representations from non-cabinet members. Is there anybody who is a member, who is a non-cabinet member, who would like to speak on any items on this agenda?
Is that generally you're asking, Chairman, or...?
I'm asking any member who's present who would like to speak on any item that is on this agenda. You have 3 minutes per non-cabinet member, if that's...
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Well, I will be speaking later on, but on the on the exempt, particularly.
You want to speak on the exempt papers? Yes.
I do want to speak about that specifically, yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, then in that case, we'll take that when we get to that point.
Yeah.
May I speak on the performance review for Q4, please? No, I'd like to do that when the item comes up, please.
I think we understand that you have 3 minutes to speak now, if you'd like to say something. When we get to the item, not right at the beginning. Is that absolutely right? Okay, so... Sorry, Joe, which one was it you wanted to speak on? Item 4?
The Q4.
Q4.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, yes, that's fine, yeah.
Chairman, are you asking us now then to specify exactly what we want to speak on, or can we speak during the meeting? Just to be clear.
I was asking you now, but
okay.
if you think you would rather just put your hand up when you get to the point, but you have 3 minutes at each item to say something if you wish to do so.
Okay. Yeah,
yes,
because I would like to speak on item 7 as well.
You'd like to speak on
item 7 and item 12.
Item 7 and item 12. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak at item 7 and item 12, please.
Any more for any more? Yes, Councillor Emsall.
I'd like to speak at item 7, please.
Item 7.
I would like to speak on the
So when I reach those points, then if you put your hand up, and then I'll take each person in turn on those items. Okay. Overview and scrutiny, Chair. Would you like to say anything at this point, or would you like to also express your committee's views as we go through the agenda?
I think it might be as well to take it point by point if there's going to be debate and discussion on each of those points.
Okay, thank you. We'll do that. In that case, that does bring us to item 7. So I believe there are one or two people who'd like to say a few things about that. Should we take the report first and then you would make your point after that? So who's presenting item 7's report? I think that's Sinead.
Thank you. You've got me today, so it's Corinne presenting that today, no problem. Quarter 4 performance report is a report that I'm presenting today. It provides an overview of the performance of the council at quarter 4, but also outlines some of the updates against our delivery plan. So you can see at the end of quarter 4, we have a positive performance picture. We have 27 green rated indicators, so those that have met or exceeded their target. We have 4 amber and only 1 red. So in terms of those indicators themselves, we continue to provide a strong performance in our supporting vulnerable residents, but also supporting our businesses across our district. In relation to the 1 red indicator, just missing its target, currently sitting at 17%, is related to staff turnover. However, it is travelling in a positive direction, and as a result of some of the targeted interventions we have been carrying out to date, and work on improving that measure continues. I will pause there and hand over to Rodney for a finance update. Thank you.
Thank you. So very much this report is showing the year-end financial position. I'd just like to highlight a few points. First of all, on the revenue budgets, there is an overspend on our core services of £452,000, and this is very much in line with what we've been predicting in previous quarters. The key areas of additional spend to note are very much the cost of temporary accommodation, where we've seen an increase in homelessness presentations, and therefore that has a knock-on impact on sort of the cost of housing these people. And also we're seeing some inflationary pressures in the waste contract with fuel and sort of pay inflation feeding through that contract. However, the good news is that this sort of overspend on core services is more than offset by our buoyant investment income, which means that overall, from a revenue position, we're in a fortunate position to be able to add £435,000 to our general reserve this year. This means that members have the opportunity, as part of considering this report, to decide whether to earmark any of this additional money, or indeed whether to let the full sum go into its general reserve. The report sets out one request to carry forward a budget, and this is set out in paragraph 3.2 on page 17. This request is to carry forward £60,000 of licensing income in order to continue to fund a licensing contractor in the current year. The report also sets out various additional budgets that have been agreed, and these are very much set out on page 18 of the report. A number of these additional budgets are multi-year budgets, so it's not surprising that a lot of the expenditure will continue in future years. So it's not surprising that not all of these have been spent in the 22-23 year. The report also details our capital spend, our investment in our assets and also in the community, and very much this is set out on page 21, which details the capital spend on a scheme-by-scheme basis. So overall, in the year, the council spent £14.4 million on capital schemes, and I think it's worth pointing out the two main schemes were very much investment in the Food Innovation Centre and, of course, the purchase and fit-out of this building. The report also sets out a number of capital carry-forward requests, and these are detailed on page 26, again for members to consider and agree whether or not to carry these forward into the current financial year. And that's all I was going to say on the matter. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you both. Can I pass it over to any members who, would you like to make your comments now, Jo?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just want to thank Rodney for his report. Thank you for all the hard work you've done. And I just wanted to say the council is in a very healthy financial situation. We have considerable reserves, and I'm pleased to say, as Rodney has just said, that we have £958,000 of investment income, and 435,000 of those will be put to the general reserve. I also want to highlight the fact that the temporary accommodation budget was exceeded by 238,000. And I believe this is the biggest risk to council budgets, and the council urgently needs to do something about this problem. Then going on to the delivery plan, I noticed that there's quite a few new projects coming forward, and I was quite interested in those, particularly MT27, which is assets for income generation. I understand the portfolio holder for transformation is heading that, and I just want to mention that assets owned by the council come into economic development. Another thing that I was slightly concerned to see was governance is crossed out. I can't remember which one that was, MT23. That's very concerning, and that's just down as business as usual. So I'd just like to ask the leader, are you going to maintain the governance arrangements, especially those around capital projects? Because some of the projects are very high value, as we've seen in the past, the Food Innovation Centre. Thank you.
Well, it's not a discussion item, I don't think. I take your points, and obviously then they will be looked at in due course, but I'm not prepared to get into a discussion over those issues. Have anything they want to say about those? Councillor Murrell.
Thank you. Yes, when we looked at the general reserves and the 435, combined that with the in 3.13 the overspend of the 238, we would propose that what we do, as previously requested by the previous Liberal Democrat group, etc., is to create £1 million reserve for temporary accommodation.
Can I just stop you there, Councillor Murrell? I think you've misunderstood. I mean, you're entitled to make a comment. I don't think you're going to make a proposal, are you, at this meeting?
Suggestion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've seen that this was actually mentioned at overview and scrutiny and was actually not voted for. So I think, you know, I take your point, I can hear what you're saying, and I know you said it at overview and scrutiny, but as I understand it, that was not voted for, and therefore it's not a proposal that we're taking forward. Yes, Councillor Sparling.
Yeah, a little bit of Groundhog Day here, isn't it? We're going back over the same arguments that we had just a week ago. This was discussed by the committee. I thought it was a decent discussion had, with lots of digging into the details of where the surplus had come from. It appears to be largely due to increased interest rates. So you could argue that crashing the economy has benefited
Bit of luck.
benefited the council here. Trustonomics, I think I heard coming from somebody delivering this bonus for the council, but not necessarily for members of the public in general. But it was, there was a proposal put forward last week, which was defeated, as you've said. So, and I know you were here for that debate. I think we should welcome, though, the details within the report itself and the way that it was clearly laid out. And so, again, I thank the finance team for explaining that again.
Thank you. Yes, it is a very, very clear and very well laid out. Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, obviously this is a really positive report, so I'm very pleased to see this. And with the positive outturn, as you say, there's 435,000 surplus here, which the Section 151 officer said could be put into an earmarked reserved. So there's no reason why that couldn't be put into a temporary accommodation.
Can I just stop you there? Because this discussion has been had. It was had at overview and scrutiny, and we do have other proposals to come forward. So
it wasn't had by myself, Chairman.
No, but it was had at overview and scrutiny. I don't think that, you know, it's fun, we hear what you're saying, right? But this has been discussed. Well, we have other proposals we want to bring forward, and I think that we should. But you know, it is now for the cabinet to make those proposals and to make those discussions. So I hear your points, so but they have already been said.
That it's not valid to make comments at cabinet now, if prior conversations have been had, which I was not party to.
Those are in the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting.
Well,
They are
possibly,
open to everybody to have a look at. I'd be astonished if I found that you didn't know that this had been discussed at Overview and Scrutiny, but I take, if you say you haven't, then fine.
No, I said I wasn't party to the discussion. That's different.
The fact is that it was discussed, it was not voted for, and now the Cabinet wants to have a discussion about what our views might be about those items on that report. So you're at liberty to make a comment, and you've all made your comments. Does anybody have any other comments they want to make that are related to this? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously I'll talk about the measures number 1, which is the performance of the target of our savings and everything like that. Obviously I was leading on this, and it's an excellent result for the end of Q4. On the way to the target of making the savings. I hope the new administration can keep that figure going, because obviously we've worked really hard to make those savings and make us a better council. My concern is that will slip, but that will hopefully continue on. And then looking at measure 2, the customer satisfaction, at the present time we are in a position where we're doing more and more work to understand what our customers need. We're in a better place for understanding our customers, and we have worked really hard to get to the customer satisfaction levels that we're at, and I want to see that continuing on as well. Regarding measure 3, the staff satisfaction, obviously for me personally, the move to the Horizon building was a very, very important move, as we needed a better place for our staff to work. This building is absolutely amazing. And it was a great shame that both the Labour and the Liberal Democrats in this council voted against the Horizon building.
Thank you, Councillor Empsall. Should we stop now? Thank you. I think we've heard this statement already this term. I think
I'm commenting on
if you'd like to comment on the performance review, that's one thing. Perhaps you would like to stick to that and then carry.
That was on staff satisfaction. I believe that staff are satisfied because we have moved them to a better building, which was done by a Conservative administration.
It was the second bit that perhaps wasn't quite so helpful, Councillor.
Right.
So if you have anything else to add, could you do it?
It's truthful, but it's just this situation. Right, moving on to the staff absence levels, which are green as well. Obviously, we look at that as a positive. The percentage of workforce that are apprenticeships and graduates is also green. And staff satisfaction is good. So overall, the only negative we have in this report is the staff retention, but we are all well aware of what sort of jobs market it is out there at the moment, especially in local authority. We know that for every job we advertise, we struggle to get people because there's so much opportunity out there. And I feel that even though that is a red, it's moving the right way and we are addressing those issues. And again, having this building for people to come and work in is going to be a bonus. So that should change that. So I feel this is an excellent report. It shows that the end of Q4, we really are doing well. And I hope the current administration can keep that going. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, perhaps I'd like to move to the Cabinet. Would anybody like to make any comments on the Q4 report? Thank you. Councillor Roper.
I will start off, and I'll start by echoing the thanks to the officers for the report that's been provided here. It provides a baseline for us moving forwards, and I clearly accept all of the work which has been completed so far on those performance metrics and in terms of the delivery plan that has been in place for the last 3.5 years. Clearly, we're at the end of that delivery plan now, and the new administration will be forming its own, although I think everybody can be assured that no bathwater, let alone babies, will be chucked out when we do so, and it will be in a very measured and considered way. With regard to the staff retention aspect, just bringing a question on that, I can see the work which has been ongoing on that. Have we had any feedback yet from staff around how they're feeling about being in the new building? We know there's been one or two snagging issues. There always will be snagging issues in a new building. But has anything come to light since we moved into this building which should give us any further extra concerns? Or are things as we originally thought they would be?
Chairman, with your permission as Head of Paid Service, it gives me great pleasure to respond to that question. We had an all-staff briefing in here at the beginning of the week. The building has been full since we occupied. Mondays and Fridays, as we anticipated, quieter days. But beyond that, the building has been very well utilised. There have been some snagging issues, but they've been minor. Overwhelmingly, the review from staff, the feedback has been extremely positive. They're enjoying the ease of access, enjoying the open office environment, and as members who have been in the building will know, there is a vibrancy and a buzz in the building when they come in. And it's not just the new staff. I was getting a cup of coffee earlier in the week, and a member of staff who had worked here or worked for the councils for 32 years said, I've worked here since I left school on YTS. This is quite simply the best place I've ever worked. Another validation was we had 4 members of the National Graduate Scheme who are looking for councils for them to come through. So they've gone through the selection process with the local government. They came to see us. All 4 were wholesome in their praise for the environment we worked in and the buzz that they felt in the building, along with the ambitious programme that the councils had in front of them. So we said when we were moving into the building, we'll learn how we want to use the building, and it'll adapt and it will change as we go through. But the initial feedback is extremely positive. We're really grateful for the team who worked very, very hard across the one team to make sure that the move-in was as seamless as possible. There are still some things to do, but they are being finished off in the next few weeks. But thank you for the question, and yes, we look forward to the next staff survey with a formal sort of snap survey to say actually where are the things that we need to improve. But you may have noticed there's 2 big whiteboards where people are encouraged to write down the things that aren't quite right or the things where they think we've got opportunity to improve. So we're not waiting for that, we're getting their feedback as we go. Thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much, Trevor. Anybody else got any more comments? Yes, Councillor Ryan.
I'll just move this over. I think the cameras follow this, Emma, don't they? The actual, yeah. My technical head came on. Right, so yeah, the report, as my colleague Dan Roper, Councillor Roper, just commented on, is a very good report. It's been put together in terms of the previous aspirations and also the forward plan in terms of that. We will, of course, be further developing the forward plan as we go under new administration. And we are looking forward to enhancements to our offer to our residents and moving forward in all kinds of ways in terms of policy review. Part of that would be to improve our offer to our residents and our communities in terms of what we offer them in terms of well-being and community support. So I'm quite pleased with some of the comments I've heard today that have already been made. But we intend to build upon that, and with particular regard to that, given the favourable 2022-23 year end financial position, I'd like to propose that we earmark some of this to increase the amount of financial support to our communities by increasing the member wall grant amount in 2023-24 from £500 to £1,000, which would be an 100% increase, and by creating a new £50,000 community grant fund. I therefore propose the following additional recommendations to Quarter 4 report. Recommend to Council the repurposing of part of the underspend to establish an increased member or budget of £1,000 per member and to establish a budget of £50,000 for a newly formed community grant fund panel. I'm also recommending proposing to all council the introduction of community grant fund panel with the terms of reference and criteria to be developed by the finance portfolio holder for communities, and also the leader, ready for a future council meeting. And I think that's a great offer to our communities, an increase of about 400%, and a good use of this windfall in terms of the investment income, notwithstanding the comments being made about the temporary accommodation. We will also be looking at temporary accommodation and financing further temporary accommodation, and it will make it my job, and I know the leader wants this as well, to do so. So this does not prevent the further expansion of temporary accommodation, and particularly in Broadland. The offer that's on later, or the proposal later here, is about a temporary accommodation, which is in Norwich. We need to also look at Broadland as well. So this will give us the ability to do that. So I've just touched on that, Chair, because there has been comments about this fund and what it could otherwise be used for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, yes.
Just to jump in on that delegation, that will need to be with an officer in consultation with portfolio holders. So we can just add, I would suggest myself, Councillor Riley, so we can work out the terms of reference, so with the monitoring officer and the portfolio holder as you described.
Remiss of me there, sorry.
All right, thank you. Does anybody would like to second that? Would you like to say any more about it?
I'll reserve.
Okay. Anybody else have any comment to make on the?
Just to say, Chairman, that the reason we've got this windfall is because of high interest rates, and that's because the economy has been overheating, and it's actually causing the problem of the council having to overspend on emergency accommodation. So it's the windfall is actually a sign of difficulty in the economy, not because of it.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a sort of swings and roundabout situation, isn't it? One lot gain and one lot lose. So, you know, what we can do to make people's lives better is the way we want to be going forward in the future, I think. I'm more than happy also to support the idea that we increase the member ward grant fund. I think we've discussed this before at various times over the years, and it's something we've always wanted to see happen. And I also approve very much of the community grant fund. I think that's a very useful aspect of contributing to our local communities and allowing groups and communities to actually grow and spread. So I'm more than happy to support that as well. So. Yes.
Just to highlight one aspect of the proposal, which I don't think Councillor Riley directly referred to, but it has in other discussions, and that is with regard to any underspend within the members' grant, and that this money needs to be recycled to the community, and therefore would be recycled into the community fund for the following financial year, so that there'll be no pressure on us, you know, spend it or lose it. That there is an allocation here towards community grants that is fixed. It is either the proportion spent by members through their ward grant. Any surplus will spill into the community grant pool. So I think this is an excellent scheme, and I'm happy to endorse it.
If I could just add to that, the detail, of course, of the scheme. The detail of the scheme, and it's our discretion, of course, with any shortfalls, will be worked out in the terms of reference and also the criteria, and that's something we do intend to do. I don't think it was absolutely specific to the proposition today, because the proposition today is about funding, where it goes to, etc. But that detail will be forthcoming in due course, of course.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes,
sorry, Chair, we can't hear very well. Could you just repeat that recommendation again, because I couldn't quite hear what it was?
The proposal is to put the monies into increasing the member ward grant fund to £1,000 per member. Also to set up a community grant fund, which would be used to support other community projects. And there is other mechanisms that might be used later also, so that if the ward member grant is not used, it will roll over in the next year into the community grant fund. That is a detail which will be forthcoming, I think. The basic principle is that we would increase the member ward grant to £1,000 and we will set up a community grant fund. £50,000, sorry. Yes. Can I move us therefore to the recommendations then in that case? I think that recommendation 1, to endorse the revenue and capital position for year end. 2 is to approve the revenue and capital slippage requests, but that also is to include the amendment proposed by Councillor Riley and seconded by Councillor Hartley. And item 3, to endorse the 2022-23 performance. Are we all happy with that? Cabinet, yes, thank you. I have missed out 4, of course, I'm so sorry, it's on the other page. To endorse the current position with respect to risks and agree the actions to support risk mitigation, which were outlined in Appendix 2. I don't think we've actually discussed those, but I think they looked perfectly reasonable. Has anybody got any comments on those items? No?
5 as well, is that?
Sorry?
5 is that the next one? Yeah.
That's item 4. 4, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're all happy with 1 to 4 with the amendment to increase the ward member grant.
It's on the next page. 5, isn't it?
No, it's not that. It's because I've got it listed here, but it comes under 4 and there's no number 5. That's my excuse and I am sticking to it. Okay, I can see it's 5 on here, I beg your pardon. Are we all happy with that then? Yes? Thank you. Okay. Can we move on then to item 8, which is the Greater Norwich Local Plan, and that is the proposed examination submission for gypsy and traveller pictures and sites. So who would like to, is it Adam is going to lead on that? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, I can give you a very brief introduction. As you appreciate, this is part of the Greater Norwich Local Plan, which has been in examination with independent inspectors since July 2021. We've been conducting further work to identify specific sites that we can allocate.
Adam, could you just move the microphone closer to you, please? Apologies, thank you.
So as well as giving you a summary of the recent consultation that we ran between January and March, we've also got details of the way forward and how we'd like to recommend sites for allocation. In broad terms, that the sites that we're looking at give a supply of 35 pitches over the current 5-year period, a further 10 pitches over years 6 to 10, a small modest windfall allowance of 12 pitches, and thus we can satisfy the identified need for pitches, which is 52. This report also seeks authority to consider 3 further sites. As often happens with local plan consultations, we consult on sites and further sites get proposed. This work is being dealt with by further small consultation on 3 additional sites, Hevingham, Folsham and Guestwick, and you'll see in the recommendations there a proposal for delegated authority to the Assistant Director for Planning to bring forward those sites should we need them for the local plan. In addition to that brief introduction, there are a few amendments to the papers, which, if you'd like me to, Chair, I could briefly summarise. The first is on page 146 and is to clarify the recommendation, and is simply at paragraph 5 to insert the word additional. That clarifies the situation that we're dealing with the 3 new sites which we're consulting upon now at Folsham, Guestwick and Heavingham. A second amendment is at page 149 papers, paragraph 3.15, which is simply to give you the extra feedback that we've looked in detail at all the consultation responses received and considered them. Then there are a further few minor corrections at page 149. It clarifies that the Woodyard Reefham Road Folsham site is for 2 additional pitches in addition to the 2 already there. At page 149 also, there's an erroneous reference to the site at Heavingham being Brick Kiln Lane. It's actually Brick Kiln Road. And a final amendment is to the Appendix A of the topic paper. There's an additional row in there that should be deleted, row 9. That is a result of the 2 Wyndham sites at Strayground Lane being combined into one.
Does anybody have any comments they wish to make on those?
There was a good degree of unanimity on this from ONS. The only concern, which was from one individual member, was about the consultation, because there had been a particularly strong and I would say high level of response from one area regarding one of the consultation, one of the areas being looked at, which seemed to have a very strong public opinion going one way, which seems to have been not. Well, perhaps it wouldn't be fair to say it hasn't been noted, but hasn't been noted in the way that it still was retained within the document itself. And the member stressed that he felt that was that local opinion had been overlooked. I'd just say in general that everyone was, apart from the one vote against, was in agreement on these sites. And it's also been noted that Broadland actually is taking a lower share than South Norfolk in this respect. So actually feeding into the GNLP, which I think we all want to try and get this signed off so that we can deal with the nutrient neutrality issues and actually have some control over development. I think there was a good level of support. But it comes back to actually consultation. I think in my experience in the past, a lot of consultations seem to have been done, and I say in the past, I mean I haven't been on this council for 8 years, but a lot of consultations seem to have been done at the end of a process to justify the process happening. And I hope that in the future, I'm not saying this was the case in this, but I would like to think that consultation is something which people genuinely feel that they can engage with and have influence on the council, because sometimes in the past, and even when I've served on parish council, we felt that I know I've even recommended before that we don't even bother filling in a consultation because we know it would have been ignored.
I'm sure that's not going to happen in this case, Councillor Stanley.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a somewhat rhetorical question on this, and that there's always a fear when sites are added to a process midway through or towards the end of it, that the examination and consideration of those sites is in any way less rigorous than those at the beginning of the process. My rhetorical question, I'm sure that's not the case, my rhetorical question is around that assurance to the residents of those around those 3 sites which are now being consulted on and considered, that actually the process that they're going to go through is going to be no less rigorous at all than any of the sites which have been considered at other stages of this process. Thank you.
That's correct, Councillor Roper.
Does anybody else have any comments they'd like to make? No? can we move to the recommendations then? If that's, is everybody happy just to take those as they are, or yes? Okay. So, and we're all happy to acknowledge that we are okay. Take this. Lovely. Thank you very much. Can I move us on, therefore, to the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework, Planning and Health Protocol, and I think that's Paul. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'll just run things through very quickly. Just context-wise, as members I'm sure will be aware, we have a duty both in policy and in legislation to cooperate in planning with certain prescribed bodies, and this includes other local planning authorities on cross-boundary strategic issues. A large part of the work we're required to do under that is discharged through the work of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Member Forum and indeed the production of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework, which is a non-statutory document which we prepare by consensus with all the other Norfolk authorities. That contains a series of agreements. The last update to that document was finalised in 2021, and agreement, I believe 18 of that document, asks us to endorse a planning and health protocol. This is what you have before you. It's worth perhaps just pointing out that whilst the recommendations in the report ask you to note the new approach, actually I'm not sure that the approach set out is all that new. Previous iterations of this document were prepared in 2017 and then more recently in 2019. This is the latest update, which has been led by the Public Health Prevention Policy Manager, who works for the County Council, but as part of that cross-boundary working, and certainly in my view, the changes aren't substantive. The changes are essentially laid out in paragraph 1.1 of the protocol itself. I won't run through them in detail, but update largely around new structures for the health service and also lay out the process more clearly in the starting section of that document. The protocol itself, as I'm sure you will have identified, is essentially procedural in nature and talks about how we will engage between the planning authorities and the various health structures and other partners, with the protocol covering both plan making, pre-application discussions on planning applications, the outline stage, and indeed a detailed permission stage. There's a pro forma at the back of the protocol which just really shapes the comments that will come in from partners on these matters, and indeed we're asked to help promote that with developers to help think about how they've designed their development. But as I said, it is procedural, it doesn't dictate outcomes, it just ensures appropriate flows of information between the two partners. The protocol either has or will be, or at least it's the intention, it will be adopted by all the partner authorities across Norfolk as a county. It's perhaps worth at that point pointing out that this was considered by South Norfolk's Cabinet yesterday. They have asked for it to go back to the member forum for some further work to be done on it. The exact nature of that work is probably a matter of discussion for the various partners, both at a member and an officer level in there. But what they were seeking was some greater detail and metrics around essentially primary care elements of the healthcare system, what's in place at the moment, and how it will be expanded going forwards. The detail of that will be to come following those discussions. Nonetheless, the protocol is as it stands. It has been previously agreed by the Norfolk Strategic Member Forum and indeed the District Health and Wellbeing Subcommittees. It is before you today, and whilst it may need to come back in a slightly revised form in the future, I believe the recommendations still hold. I'll leave at that point, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yes. Before you say that, I think I understand what you're saying about the metrics, and I think there's an issue, isn't there? We all know there's a significant issue with supply of GP surgeries and so on. I understand why that might have been a question, I don't think that necessarily impacts on the protocol that we have here in front of us. So I'll defer to the Cabinet to see what their view is, but I don't think that would necessarily preclude us from signing up to it as it stands. So, yes.
Again, there was a lot of agreement on ONS between members across all political groups on this. I mean, I think it was welcomed, but I think the point was made by me and others that just by saying it and planning for it, that does not mean it will happen. It's far more complicated than that. I made reference at the time that Councillor Weimart's now chairman of the Norfolk County Council Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I attended a meeting which he was also at, where we talked about other services in primary, including community pharmacies, and real concerns around the provision of that, which when I brought that up at the meeting, the Vice Chairman of ONS almost wanted it minuted that he agreed with me, which was almost worth noting in itself. So, but I think there was a good degree of unanimity in terms of supporting this and welcoming it. I agree that it would be nice to have some more measures, and perhaps that's something which could be brought back to ONS in the future to see what measures we have to, with that further in-depth analysis of is it working?
Thank you. Councillor Clancy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll actually endorse what Councillor Starling has said. These frameworks are only meaningful if they actually deliver. The risk of these, and I've sat on this particular one for quite a long time, that they simply become talk shops and they don't actually deliver little or nothing meaningful. If they can actually feed into the Norfolk Strategic Health and Community Partnership and actually make meaningful difference in communities to actually deliver what, again, our objective as all councils would be to enhancement of primary care in communities, it's meaningful. If it's simply yet another talk shop, frankly, it's a waste of time and money. So I think, it's right to do some more work on this, and I think it's right to come back through the due process of this authority to actually try to give it some teeth. And I don't think either yourself or Councillor Starling would differ from that view, because there's no point in having policies sitting there if they don't benefit communities. And these kind of things, are fine words, but we need to turn these fine words into fine deeds as such. And, I totally endorse everything that's been said by both the Cabinet members and the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Channel.
Thank you. Does anybody else have something? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think the thing about this document is very much about the how rather than the what. In terms of the how we include health planning as we go forwards with the very big challenges ahead around planning and development. I do wonder if where South Norfolk has strayed into is maybe trying to guide more the what in terms of the types of metrics that they are looking to achieve. Certainly I look forward to seeing what response comes back on that. But I think as far as this council is concerned, this is a document that is needed. I am content to endorse it today, not see Broadland District Council itself stand in the way of the progress or the speed of the progress, whilst respecting the views of another council. If those views do carry some weight and a revision comes back to us, I look forward to seeing that revision. But from the point of view of this Cabinet, I think we should be pressing ahead and passing both of these recommendations today.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Well, I'd just like to endorse what's been said as well. I think just the discussion suggests that there's certainly a willingness to look at the more detailed aspects of how such an integrated approach in terms of spatial planning and embedding health and well-being within spatial planning can take place. It's absolutely necessary. I think we recognise that. And certainly the public have expressed that view that we should be looking at this in much more detail. It is a strategic planning framework and not therefore going into the detail that we're talking about, but it's absolutely essential to have that strategic planning framework to actually lay out how we should integrate health and wellbeing with spatial planning. So I'd certainly endorse that. And I think going forward, hopefully take forward the necessary detailed planning that comes under this framework. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems to me that this is actually a sort of guidelines for the questions to ask as much as the solutions to find, isn't it? So from that point of view, I think, you know, we are quite content to endorse what we have, and I can entirely agree that these things need to be taken forward, and we would look to see what happens, whatever comes back, should something come back. Did you want to say something, Councillor Edel?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to endorse everything what's been said, you know, for protocol and procedures are actually addressing quite a lot of the issues which have never been addressed before. So the how is very important, how we go about it as a society, in developing provision. And I noticed from the documentation that they're looking at developing the provision at every stage of all the processes which the document refers to. So yeah, I'd thoroughly endorse it, Chair.
So in that case, I think what we're actually saying then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're all saying, yes, we note the new approach to embedding health and wellbeing in spatial planning, although we also note that it's not really new because it's really developed on what was already there. And we are quite happy to endorse that. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. Okay, thank you. So that takes us on to item 10, which is the forward plan. We are asked to note the forward plan and comment as appropriate. I think we have already said that we are getting towards the end of the delivery plan, which is the 6-month process. We have the forward plan, with a number of items are on there, which are things that are, some of them are regulatory. We will probably be bringing more things forward ourselves to go on to that. But in the meantime, I think, Jo, you had something you wanted to say, didn't you?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I had a good look through the forward plan, and there was just a couple of things I just wanted to ask you as the leader about. The Broadland Country Park master plan was coming forward in September. That has always been in economic development, and it seems to now be in communities and housing. And also the contract for tree inspections and work and ground maintenance, again, that is in economic development and not in communities and housing. If I could just bring your attention to the Constitution and the terms of reference for economic development, it's all set out in there, and I just would like that corrected, please, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I will bow to your greater expertise, because obviously that's not something I would have noticed, but I will ask Emma. Yes, you can. I'll come back to you, Jo.
I think this is to the point that I talked about in council, that we'd aligned the services in the way that I felt was the right way. If I've got some of those wrong, then we will work all of those through, but it's something I just need to sit down and work through with the leader. But I thought I'd aligned everything correctly, but we will obviously make sure that aligns back to the Constitution fully.
Sorry, Chair, I just forgot to mention, on several reports, the Community Assets Manager is listed as being Michael Horton. I just want to bring it to your attention that he left the council back in November last year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments they want to make on the forward plan?
I think as set out, Chair, this sets out the bones of things that we have to deliver in the coming months. Many of them are regulatory. Many of them are concluding ongoing pieces of work under the previous strategy. No doubt we will be adding to this. This is not the totality of the council's work. As we go forwards, there will be a lot more to add to it. I think with regard to any points of detail about correct portfolios and the right columns and so on, absolutely no barrier at all to endorsing this forward plan today. Certainly my understanding on this administration taking office was that we were moving nothing around until there was a review, a proper review, as far as that's concerned. that work is still to take place. So certainly our understanding is that we're inheriting the status quo. There might be one or two points of detail where people want to discuss that, and I'm happy to do so out of the meeting. But as far as today is concerned, I'm more than happy to endorse this forward plan, and no doubt we'll be adding and developing it as we go along.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a comment? Yes.
In terms of governance around this, I think Emma has already well covered the issue, and of course under my portfolio position of governance will be helping in terms of that with Emma as well. So just to clarify that is being examined and in the right way as well.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think we're all aware that this is a new 4 years coming up, and that we will be looking at all of these elements, and that includes all the portfolios and all the panels and where they will sit. So in due course then something else will come forward, and we'll review it at that point. Does anybody have any other comments to make about it? And if not, no, thank you. In that case, we will move on to item 11, which brings us to the exclusion of the press and public. So I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business, because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006, would be disclosed to